Hello, everyone. I just wanted to come on here and say happy Friday. I wanted to introduce someone who just continuously has been inspiring me. I met her a few months ago through a coaching program that I was doing. Um, and it's just been so cool to get to know her and to hear her story. So I wanted to bring her on here today and get her to share her story with you as well. So today we have Sabre. I'm just going to, I've never done a Facebook Live, so I'm just going to invite her.
Yay!
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great, great. Thanks for joining me this afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. Your camera's super zoom, so if you wanna get
Okay. I'll
better,
try
I
to
know that's one of
my,
the reasons I work on these ones because it'll stack it. It basically cuts it in half.
okay. I'll pull my arm out here. Is this better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Okay.
Yay! I'm so
Yeah.
happy to be here and to be the first person that you interview here. That's so exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was just saying that I've been so inspired by your story and getting to know you for the last few months. When I was introduced to you, I was in Crystal and Belle's coaching group, and yeah, I heard your story about being a festival vendor and then going from that to traveling the world and doing this business. And so I just wanted to have you on here and share your story. Yeah,
Thank you.
you don't mind letting me know and letting my friends know, how you got started doing this and what that transition was like for you.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. Give me a moment. Let me know if this is loud. Is my fan loud?
It's okay. Yeah,
Okay.
it's okay.
It's very hot here in Paris, so thank you everybody for tuning in, and thank you again, Puppet, for having me. And it really just brings me so much joy to share about this business and this opportunity because when you talk about how I went from vending at festivals to traveling the world, that was actually my goal when I started vending. But ironically, I just was so locked into my area. I'm from California, from the West Coast. I started my vending journey back in 2016. And, my dream was to vend at all of the really big festivals like Envision in Costa Rica. There was another one in Guatemala on New Year's, Cosmic Convergence, and just like Boom in Portugal, and like Rainbow Serpent in Australia, and all these amazing places. And it was so interesting because actually at the end of 2018, I got accepted to Cosmic Convergence. And I was like, yes, I can finally travel with my art. But then honestly, reality set in of, oh my God, now I have to take all of these things, all of this inventory, all of this product, and then there's taxes. And I was like, import taxes. And then it was just like, it, and I had to turn it down. I turned it down. And then the following year was my first really big year where I really went all in with vending. I went to 26 events in 2019, like back to back to back, like you name it, craft fairs, uh, what do you call it, like little small evening parties, and even I'm trying to think of the word. I don't know, different conventions. There are so many areas that you can set a booth in, whether it's going to be for one night or for the whole weekend. And some of them would be, you would pay them commission. Some of them you would pay, a few $100. Some of them you would pay a few $1,000s. And what was really interesting was, some of them were really good and some of them were really great. The biggest weekend that I had, I made $30,000 in a single weekend. But the reality of my life, Puppet, was all of that money. I knew how to make a lot of money, but it always would go back into the next booth fees, the next inventory, the next supplies I needed to get, because a lot of the things I also purchased wholesale and would resale, because I was like, well, I don't want to make everything myself, right? So it was just, I really got to experience what it was like building a business from scratch where you're really wearing all of the hats. And it
Mhm.
was really my passion, My booth was called Blessed More Medicine and Magic, and everything that I made was very intentional. It was like ritual medicine wear, and it was, people would come up and they would be buying my pieces, and just, they would be a part of like beautiful weddings and ceremonies and performances and all these things. Yet I, like how I felt inside, I didn't have any time to work out, girl. Like I didn't have any time for friends or like community or going out. I would wake up, make art, and until my eyes were crossing
Yeah.
after way too much caffeine and just eating like mac and cheese or something because it was just quick and easy.
Yeah.
And I would just go to sleep. That was literally my life. That was literally my life. And I knew I wanted to make money online. What that looked like at the time was like maybe I do Etsy, maybe I do drop shipping, maybe I
Mm-hmm.
do OnlyFans. Has anyone looked into that? You know, there's like, especially as a performer, I'm like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many other avenues that I was looking into, and at the end of the day, when I found this, it was the first time that I saw a woman playing didgeridoo on the beach, talking about how she also used to be a festival vendor, fire performer, but she's also a single mom.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't trying to go do OnlyFans, and she wasn't trying to like
Yeah.
do these
Yeah.
kind of things. So it was the first time I saw a woman who came from my world, who had more experience as an entrepreneur than me, but also was talking about like conscious millionaires and making money online in the digital nomad space. And that just like, I just knew, because I was just tired of seeing all the ads and listening to all the YouTube videos about how to make money online. It's very bro style, so much like, you know, you see all this cash, I'm gonna show you how to make it by doing da, da, da. And I'm just like, okay, but something's not feeling right. Like I didn't
Yeah.
feel that heart spark that we as women, and especially we as creatives, really need. You know, like we don't care to just do money, otherwise we wouldn't have chosen the artist path. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's not the space we go to make a bunch of money. But when we go into that space, we realize if we are turning our passions to profit, then it turns into our passions to our burden
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways. And I didn't want that life for myself. And I knew that I was like, okay, the trajectory of this, I could create this in a way where it's really working for itself, but it's going to take like 10 years. And am I going to make it? You know, because of just all the stress that was building up for me.
Yeah.
And when I found this, I really just looked at it as a way for me to bring my creativity. It's a different way of creating, right? It's like I'm no longer like labor making like earrings or leather, even though I love doing that stuff. Actually, still quite very burnt out about it. But that still outlet for creativity came through in learning how to be a personal brand, learning how to be a content creator, learning how to like find my voice through my writing, through speaking, and I'm a dancer, so like I dance in my content too. And just that creative aspect, but I got to plug into this business, this high ticket affiliate marketing business, where I get to have products that are amazing for my health, that have completely transformed like my skin and my outlook and my desire to be healthy, but then also plugged me into lifelong community that have been my best friends. And now I'm location free, and I don't have to ever turn down an opportunity to go to a festival in another country because it's just I can't make it because I have too much stuff. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Now I'm actually quite minimalist too, because I since I started this business, I've gone to 12 different global trips since I started in
Mm-hmm.
2020, and I never was able to travel before Puppet. Like I got my passport, and I'm pretty sure I'm the first person in my family that ever had a passport. Like
Yeah.
multiple generations. So yeah, I see it as the way for creatives and visionaries and people who really have a heart-led mission. If you want to make money online and if you want to do it in a way where it sparks your heart and you can really channel like who you are, this is it, you know? Like I literally my fifth I can't remember if it's the 15th or 18th month. April 16th month that I came into this business. I had my first multi five-figure month that was as much as I had profited in that 1 year that I went to 26 events.
Mm-hmm.
In 1 month. 1 month! And I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
This is it. I was like, you can't convince me any other way. I'm never going back. And
Yeah.
you know, it hasn't been like linear. It's not like I had that happen, and then it happened every single month since then. Like I've had ups
Mhm.
and downs as an entrepreneur, but I know what's possible now that I'm just like, this is it. And this is the time to get into something like this too, because, excuse me, there's so many people who are awakening to the idea of making money online, but there's also a lot of people who are still, I don't even know how, but still there's people out there that are like, everything online is a scam. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, you can go over there, but in the meantime, the people who are actually taking action on the people who are saying yes to digital marketing today, they're going to be changing the way that their entire future is laid out and set up. No matter how old they are, it can also be set up for their future, their children, in the next 10 years. So that's really exciting.
Yeah. And so you've been in this business for, is it 3.5 years? Is that correct?
5 years.
5 years. Okay, sorry. Yeah, 5 years. Yeah. Yeah. And you were living, so now you're in Paris, and you were initially like living in a van and traveling around the country. So that's like
Yeah,
a big shift in 5 years. And to be
yeah,
able to do this business as you travel and as you explore.
yeah. When I first started, it was a pretty cool bus, I will say. I actually started my art business in a minivan.
Okay. Yeah.
I dropped out of college. I quit my job. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I had like financial aid, and I also had some grants from foster care, and I
Hmm.
just had that as savings, and I literally just started making art in my minivan on the beach in Santa Cruz, California. That was what I did, and then I started
Yeah.
going to festivals, and my booth went from a blanket on a ground at festivals to this booth that was getting accepted at something like Cosmic Convergence in Guatemala. Unfortunately, I couldn't take it, but c'est la vie. But then at that point, I had gotten that bus, and I was traveling around, and I mean, it looked. You know how many people came up to me and they were like, "I'm so proud of you. You're doing so good." And in a lot of ways, I guess I was. Not a lot of people who are 24 years old could buy a $15,000 bus. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Not a lot of
Yeah.
people can do that at 24, but I also, where my mindset was, I was living in a bus because I told myself that I couldn't afford rent in California. Like I
Mhm.
just had this limitation. It was like, it was just such a scarcity mindset. And this is what I saw a lot in the artist community too. That was like, just like preserving and scraping all your resources. And I remember when I found this business, I started opening up my possibilities. It's like, why can't I have a badass bus and a place to rent? Like for some reason in my head, I had to do either or because I was like,
Yeah.
the gas is expensive. I'm like, fuck it. I can have a everyday car, and I can have a really badass camper vehicle, and I can have a place. Why hasn't anyone told me this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so today my mindset is very different. Like no matter where, what, I have no problem spending money nowadays. Now the thing is learning how to manage the money and how to like, not go crazy, because when you have really big months and you don't come from money, you get very excited. You're like, of course I need to I need to go on a trip to blah blah blah. Of course I need to go stay at a 5-star place. Of course I need, and I had to do that from my experience.
Yeah.
Never was able to do things like that. So now I'm at this space where the way I look at money is just so different than back then, and that time where I lived in a bus really symbolizes. It wasn't a like, oh, I got evicted from my place and I, couldn't do shit in my life. It was
Mhm.
it was a woman that was so ambitious on the inside but wasn't allowing herself to like believe that she could have everything yet, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very beautiful reflection on how far that's come. So that was the beginning of 2020. So it's technically been like 4.5 years.
Okay. Yeah. And so, when you're speaking about your mindset expansion and the money work that you've done, like that's been one of the things that I particularly have loved so far in my short like
Yeah.
2 months in this community is,
Mm-hmm.
the heart-centered people, but then also the resources and the expansive thinking and the collaboration. So,
Yeah.
you've been in this space for 4.5 years. So yeah, maybe you want to expand on that a little bit too.
Yeah, absolutely. That the whole money thing was really big for me. I just remember that was the biggest thing of realizing, why have I told myself I can't live and have a camper van and this? It was like that was some of my first big like, wait a second. I've been living my life so backwards when it comes to, we talk about abundance in the new age spiritual community. Everyone's like, everything's abundance. We get to eat friggin' quinoa and kale all day. Everything's so abundant, but yet there. I say this with love in my heart, but it's like at the same time, the way they're thinking about money is that money is evil, and that if you have goals to like have a lot of money, it's like why would you do that? You don't need that. People are starving. Da, da, da. It's like, well, how are we ever going to get to a place, even in humanity or as a society, if we don't actually allow ourselves to actually truly thrive when it comes to money? Because truly,
Yeah.
I started to really realize that the people that are talking down on money, especially in the spiritual conscious community, I speak so much to that because that's where I come from, but it's like those exact people are the ones that actually need to make a fuck ton of money. So that's what I really loved about this community too, was like finally finding people who, did cacao ceremonies and yoga and breath work and quantum woo woo galactic shit and like pulling tarot cards and, all these things. But they were also like really down to make a lot of money and really empowering our stories around money. And I had never seen those two worlds collide.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was something that, it brought up a lot of stuff for me because I actually had to change a lot of my circle. Even my relationship that I was with at the time, like we started this business together actually 5 years ago now. Jesus Christ. It's been 2 years now since we split up, but it's like even I had to, as I grew into that, I had to let that go because I recognized that I really needed to surround myself with the people who were having this really big, thinking, expansive desire for something so much more. Because otherwise, I would kind of pick up on their beliefs. I would go grocery shopping with him, for instance, and my business was starting to take off. He was still figuring it out. More so, I think, because he didn't really want to ultimately do it. He's not doing it now to this day. But we would go to the grocery store, and I was starting to really just be like, I don't care. We're going to get the organic one. Like, just do it. It's fine. It's like, we need organic blueberries. Don't even think about it. It's just like $1 difference,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But he was always just in this mindset of like, get the cheaper one, get the cheaper one. Oh, we don't really need that. These kinds of things. And, this may seem like a small example being at the grocery store, but I tell you, the frequency that you are in when you know that you have a business where things can change so fast. I mean, even for you, Puppet, like, I know you're at the very beginning stages of your journey, but truly, when your first sale can be almost $3,000 for you, like, when you start to do that, your belief just starts to change. And the funny thing is, we don't actually need the money first to have that mindset. You have to really train yourself to have that mindset beforehand. So it was this funny tandem that we were in, where it was like we were both trying to do the money mindset work, but I could really see how his mindset around money was preventing me from really expanding. He would say things like, "Oh, that's expensive," or when we were looking for a place together, it's like, I wanted the bigger place that had more light, that had more breeze, that had a nice yard or whatever. But he was always just looking at the number rather than like the space. And I was always like looking at like, what is the space or the frequency going to be when we actually live there? It's like, yeah, it could be a stretch, but that actually like, it's like, have you ever not had enough to not be able to feed yourself and have a roof over your head? No, but you're trying to protect all of the things as if you have. And the reality is, if we're in a first world country and we have all this opportunity, we have social media, and we have a business opportunity that, you can make multi thousands of dollars from one sale. I'm just like, just say yes that you can do that and go live where you want to live and trust that it will unfold. And this is such a tricky thing for so many people because we think we have to have the money and then we can do that. But I the biggest thing that I've learned here is to really do those shifts, and it's small things that lead up to the bigger things, you know. For me, it did end up buying a one-way ticket to Costa Rica before I even had my first $5,000 month in this space. And trusting myself, I did have a buffer of like, you know, probably like 6 months of my living expenses as a savings, so it wasn't like I just threw myself in the ether, but that still gave me that space of like trusting that I'm going to figure it out in 6 months or less. You know what I mean? So yeah, and that was the time actually within the 4 months. It was like 4 months had gone by, and I started to feel the stretch because I saw my money dwindle a little bit faster than I expected. And I was like, ah! It was like almost like it has to work. It has to work, right? And I refused. I was like, I do not want to go back to California. We were also during lockdowns at the time. And I was like, hell no. I am staying with the warm beaches and the coconuts and the monkeys.
Yeah.
Over here, so much nicer here. They don't make you wear masks. It was like, I was like, no. And then bam, I had my first 25K month. So this is why, and actually when I moved to Paris, I was like, I have a very big goal of, you know, we hear people in our community that have $100,000 months.
Yeah.
And that's totally possible. And that's like my next goal. I was like, 2024, I really want that to happen. And I was like, okay, when I do that, then I'll move to Paris. Like, well, there's that thing that I have done in the past. And I was like, actually, if I go to Paris, I'm going to be in the, why do I want to go to Paris? Because it feels opulent here. It feels expansive. It feels very sexy and free, and I've always wanted to just travel to Europe, really. So like living in Europe, it's like it gives me that feeling of like I've made it before I've made it. You know what I mean? So it's like that is the biggest mindset shift that I have changed, because I always was moving backwards, where I felt like I had to have a thing before I could do it. Then the ironic reality of that was I never freaking got the thing, i.e. the real money that I really wanted. I was just like kind of breadcrumbing myself. Mm-hmm. And it was an endless loop that kept me stuck. But now that I live in this way where I just do the thing first before I make the money always still comes. Always. It's almost like you put a container and the universe, God, spirit, whatever you call it, is going to fill the container whatever size you bring it. You know? You're like, here's a big ass jug, or you could be like, there you please put
Yeah.
So you just get to pick how expansive that container is going to be, you know? And that's going to be different for, oh, there's my tripod. And that's going to be different for everybody and their nervous system and where their current like beliefs and stories are, you know? And I believe it's all connected to worthiness.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, we've had conversations about that where, you know, things were going well and then, oh, the nervous system kicks in
Mm-hmm.
and you sort of run into some self-sabotage. And it's like, I've noticed that also in our, which is really beautiful, to have such a supportive community where the communication is open and people are like, you know, you are going to have these months that are fantastic, but just know you're also going to have months where you're going to have to support yourself and your beliefs and your nervous system, and then it's going to come back again. And so it's been really cool learning people's stories about that too, because it's like, you know, it's relatable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I still have them.
Yeah.
I was telling you, I still have them. And I'm very open with this stuff that I go through on my channel, because I really want to make sure people know that, like, it's not just highlight reels, you know? When you see people that have success online, it's like, the reality of it is it's you choose your hard, right? It's hard working in 9 to 5. It's hard working for yourself. It's just, life is not like puppies and rainbows. And for me, I've just come out of a really, really dark place, and it sometimes almost feels like there's no end, but I know there is eventually, because there always has been. So I was just like riding the wave. I'm like, oh my God. And then yesterday, funny enough, I'm also a little sick right now, and I believe sicknesses are when you're like purging stuff energetically.
Yes.
And yeah, yesterday I was just had this like awakening within me that was just like, just choose. You're choosing differently now. You were choosing some really dark stuff, and it was really hard to choose otherwise. It's like I couldn't get out of this like self-sabotage story for a while. But yesterday I was like, no, we're done. Onwards. You got some shit to do. It's time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that it was coming, and even when I didn't believe that it was, because sometimes it gets really hard when you're in really dark times, and it's very hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I lean on this community so much. Like, I have some of my best friends in this community that I have talked to hours and hours and hours and hours. And even when I want to roll my eyes, I'm like, oh, another mindset thing. Ah, another blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's going to work right now.
Yeah.
It's still, even though it feels like it's hitting a wall, it's still seeping in there, you know, rather than like if I didn't have this community and I was just surrounding myself with, for instance, back at festivals where there was lots of people that were also just jaded and also just, you know, abusing substances and just being in this very scarcity mindset place and just kind of being like, this is just the way it is. It's very hard to see the light when you don't have that community around you that helps you see it even when you're not seeing it for yourself.
Yeah. And so you were recently in Japan with like a huge global community, like in person,
Yeah.
and like how was that energy?
Oh my gosh. I think that was a part of what's going on with me right
Mm,
now,
okay.
actually. Yeah. Every time I've gone to new, whether I move new places, like big goals that I'll do, or like just big conventions, or just like things that are a big stretch for me.
Mhm.
And it's just like a portal. It's this, I don't know if you've ever read the book Upper Limit by, or no, not Upper Limit, The Big Leap by Gay Hendrickson,
Okay.
but it is so good. He talks about the upper limit for basically it's our capacity to receive and believe how good life can really be. So essentially when we have, you know, these new heights that we're wanting to move through, like in money or in our goals, etc., it's like the level of income that people are making is really staying at the level of how good they really believe that it can actually be. And when things start to stretch that idea of like, holy shit, like this is actually happening. I never thought I'd see myself in Japan, let alone also going to Japan and going to our company's 50th anniversary and seeing people that were from like India, you know, like third world countries that went from like having like a little dingy dungeon of a home to becoming multimillionaires and buying homes and gifting them to their parents and stuff, you know, like things like that from all walks of life. Like, you know, there's no, it's like you literally can't, you, there's no disbelief that comes from that other than what can then be reflected within. And I actually had a lot of stuff come up for me at that event. I was just like I had a huge inspiration for what's possible for my future.
Mhm.
And also a B, fuck, do I really want to choose this? Do I have to be the one that does this for my future? Truly. I was like, fuck, this is amazing. And it's so big. I was
Yeah.
just like, do I really want that? Like, it was contrast. So I went through this whole thing, which I've gone through multiple times actually in, in my journey here. I was like, is this really for me? Is this really for me? But then shit like this happens. I would get awards anyway, and each time it's a rank is a number, but it's a milestone to like what you had to go through to get there. And like I want to cry when I talk about this, but when I see the people that were in the dashes, the people that are making the generational wealth from all these different countries, and they had like their kids up there with them and, you know, their partners, I was just like, you know, for me, I realized that I'm in this space because I'm creating the family that I never had. And I just I started the business for me because I was like, well, I want a bus and a home. And now that I have, like, basically, I'm stoked about what I have. I'm very stoked about what I have. But now it's like, it's going above and beyond of like what I want for other people and what I want for my future family. And that is, it's just another layer. It's just another undertaking that's just like another preparation, another identity that I know I need to cultivate. And, it's scary. It brings up a lot. But I was just like, what's the alternative?
Yeah.
Not doing that? Like, telling my future kids that we can't afford something, which is what my mom told me about travel all my life, like, I, yeah, that's what's been happening every time there's like a new level for me in this business or in entrepreneurship. I'm just like, oh, it's just shedding a lot of that stuff. Crazy bug. It's shedding a lot of that stuff that's just like has told me that I couldn't all my life. Starting with my mom saying, no, we can't travel. No, you can't dress that way. No, you can't say that. No, you can't, like, whatever it is. It's like, it's taking back my power in all these areas. And that's where, yeah, it's both. It's both. I am so stoked about this business and I have it in my heart. My flag is fully planted. You couldn't pay me to do anything else ever to take me away from here. And it's challenging. It's all of it.
Right, you're doing it, and now it's like, yeah, you decided as of, sort of yesterday when you had that moment, okay,
Yeah.
now you're right.
Yeah. I know there's so many layers to it. You think that you get into this business for money, but what you actually get into is for your own personal transformation. Like, funny enough, all of this that I've gone through has made me realize that I need to talk to my dad. And I've been ignoring my dad for many years, and I shouldn't. I mean, I don't want to shit on myself, but he's actually sober for 6 years, but he wasn't there growing up. And it's like, it's funny how, like, it's not related, but it's also related because realizing my worthiness, like in what I'm able to have is also just connected to, well, how am I showing up in other areas of my life? Like, what's underneath not talking to my dad, for instance. So yeah, all of this has come full circle for me to recognize that. And I'm actually deciding that I'm just like quitting alcohol altogether too, like just being completely sober. And I battled with that ever since I was like 12 years old. And I've always been like, I can't ever say never, but now at this point I'm like, dude, it just doesn't have a place in my life. It just doesn't have a place in my life. And the person that I need to become is somebody that doesn't have any gray areas with family or friends and like has cleaned up all the burned bridges that she's burned, and has, yeah, full health in all areas. And this is all happening because I said yes to this business. Back when I was doing art and everything, I was just eating mac and cheese and fucking waking up to survive and make art until I fell asleep that night.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that I've noticed like in this past few months. It was like, there was decisions leading up to this, right? And then it was, deciding to invest in myself in the coaching program. And then in that program, I actually quit drinking coffee and alcohol for 28 days. And at first I'm like, yeah, whatever, right? It wasn't a big deal. But I started realized, where those behaviors were stemming from and why I was doing them. And then I had to analyze those things and think about it. And it was a great 28-day program. Um, and then it made me just decide, like, I don't need alcohol anymore. I just don't need it. And the coffee thing was a bigger deal than I thought it was. And
Yes.
it's still a thing. I notice now, what I'm like on it and what I'm like off of it. And so it's been interesting. And then, yeah, we did that. You did a webinar in our group and you were explaining to us like the benefits of high ticket passive income.
Mhm.
And it was so interesting to me because now I'm clear minded, right? And I'm starting to make different choices. I'm starting to notice my behavioral patterns and make different choices. And I started to have these like flash visions while you were speaking. And I hadn't had those in years. And I thought, okay, there's something here for me. Like there's something here for me. And I know that we were going through certain calls, and I actually watched a couple of your webinars. And each time I just like, there was like this pull of like, this is what you have to do. This is where you have to go. And then I'm having all these like, you know, well, fears and trepidations and, how am I going to do this? Is it really, and it's hard to trust someone on the other side of the world. Like, I don't know you. We just met virtually through this. It's like, yeah, everyone's talking about, scams and how much you can't trust people. But I'm thinking like, I trust my vision. I trust my higher self. I trust the universe. That's kind of like how I've been winging it for the past like 9 years. So I'm like I have to trust this, and the development and the changes that I'm noticing in myself and in my life. I've started running. I've started like working out at night. I've, let go of certain important relationships and um, created boundaries and made decisions on things. And it's like, it's all because I said yes, one, to myself. I decided to invest in myself. And then I said yes to this business and to this community. And I mean, every week when we do our team huddles and stuff, and there's like the quantum breath works or the visualizations. And it's just like, it's just such an inspiring, positive, cool community. And I'm really loving, where it's taking me. So it's been pretty cool for me as well so far.
That's so exciting. There's not a single person who's like really dropped in. Don't get me wrong, it's crazy to me, but there are people who get their products and they just never tune into anything. And I don't know what's going on there, but there's nothing you can do about that, right? But the people that actually come in and actually dive into what it is that we have here, there's not a single person that has not said that their life has not been changed. And that inner transformation comes first before the money. And that's the funny part, is like the money is actually a byproduct of the person that you truly become, because looking back at where I was, I'm like, well, of course it took me a while, because where my frame of mind was at was like being in such scarcity that I was like not even taking care of myself enough, and I was, telling myself I couldn't afford rent in California. So it's like my mindset, there needed to be a lot of work in my identity. Skill set, yes, also, but also a really big part of it is the identity and like who you are really expressing in the world. Because yeah, then when you become that person that just knows that she can get what she wants and make whatever she needs to get wherever she is, you get to that place. And what's funny is, even when you get to that place, now the next step is like to have that bigger vision of like outside of your own needs. That's where I'm at right now. It's like, I know that I got me. I'm dialed. I'm like, whatever I want, I can figure it out and I'll make it happen.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, well, now I want to do that with somebody. Now I want to cultivate that with a family. Now I want to have more teammates like closer to me and like do retreats and get us together and things like that. So it's like my why has to expand more.
Hmm.
And the money still has to come from those bigger areas for people outside of me. But it's like you got to cultivate that in you first, as the identity of someone who just does that, who just lives like that. So yeah, it's so huge. I'm so stoked for you and your journey, and for
Yeah.
you and for us.
Yeah. 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 And so you've got some events coming up, which would be really cool.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we got the Thailand event. The Greece one that we were talking about for August
Mhm.
is getting put back, but that's totally fine because, gosh,
Everything at the
your girl
right time, right? Like everything at the right time.
yeah, Thailand's gonna be big. It's gonna be big enough. But we're going to be announcing that also on our webinar too. So anybody that's partnering with us and coming all in and diving in with our quad package, which we talk about in the webinar, but that's what you dove in on. Anyone that's doing that this month, they're going to be able to get a free all-inclusive ticket to this retreat. And the retreat is in September, but it's in Thailand. And just think like everything that we're talking about, but bringing community and mindset and quantum magic and healing and breath work and dance and movement and play all in a luxury villa in Thailand with probably like 40 people, I would say, I think.
Okay.
30 to 40. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's going to be really good. I'm so excited for that.
Cool. Well, so yeah, we're gonna do a webinar together on Sunday, and so yeah, I mean, we still have to kind of come up with some posts and stuff like that for that one. But I'm excited. I'm so excited for that. That'll be really cool. It'll be my first webinar for this, so yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So anybody watching this, if you guys are wanting to learn about high ticket affiliate marketing and what we do, we spell out everything in these webinars, and Puppet is going to freaking rock it. And I'm so excited to do this webinar with you. It's going to be on Sunday. I'm sure what you could do, Puppet, is you can actually update the caption in your live with like the time and the date of the webinar if you'd like.
Okay.
I can't remember the exact time that we put it on. It's in my
Yeah.
calendar, but yeah, just reach out to Puppet or whoever's page you're watching this on. Or if you're watching this in our group too, you can always just tag the person who invited you to this group. You'll find your way, I'm sure. But it's a free training, and it's going to spell out everything of how this all works, and it's definitely going to change your life.
All right. Well, I look forward to that, and I'm gonna let you go because I know you have to run and you've got some meetings and commitments. But yeah, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
You as well. We'll see you Sunday.
Bye.
Bye.